Hello, Facebook. Hello, Internet. My name is Elliot Witt. I am the Assistant Manager of Digital Services here at the Aurora Public Library District. And today I'm going to be talking about some free apps for summer fun. Now, this is something which I am very excited about. Normally, I do talk about services that the library provides, whether that be for ebooks like Overdrive, music like Freegal, or if it's some of our research databases like BrainFuse or A to Z or Ancestry Library Edition. In this case, this is none of that. This is me finding some apps that I like. These are actually all apps that I use regularly on my phone. I have them all downloaded and in regular rotation on my home screen. But since they're free, and since I think they provide both education and entertainment, and also help to keep you safe during the summer, I wanted to share them with you, the viewing audience, and the people of the city of Aurora. So without further ado, I shall share my screen and we shall get into free apps for summer fun. So I have 4 apps, I believe it's just 4 apps that I'm going to share today. And the first one definitely lands on the safety side of things. So the first one is called UV Lens. So, and that is its logo right there. By the way, I'll say before I even begin that all of these are available for free. They are free downloads on both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So they are available for almost any mobile device that you might have, and they are free. So UV Lens, this is ultraviolet light. If anyone out there is not familiar with what is ultraviolet light, where does it come from, what does it do? Ultraviolet light is predominantly created by sunshine. And it's great. Sunshine is fantastic. Sunshine is very important. But that ultraviolet light can damage your skin. It's what causes you to tan, and ultimately is what causes you to sunburn. And so this app is looking to keep you safe. So I'm going to show you, and these are all screenshots taken on my phone. They weren't taken right or anything, as you can see by the 55 degrees there. These were taken a couple of months ago. But this is what I see when I log in. I don't have to log in. There's not a login necessary. When I open up UV Lens, this is the home page. This is the first page that I see. And so there are a few things to note here. It gives me the current weather, that 55 degrees and sunny up top. And it tells me when I might want to take care in the sun. In this case, it was 10 a.m. to 3:10 p.m. It also gives my current location, which at the time was in Sugar Grove. Just barely west of Aurora, just pushing the boundary between Aurora and Sugar Grove. The most important thing here that you're going to see is this wheel. This wheel is a 12-hour clock, and it tells when you might be at risk of sunburn. So it shows it on a scale of 1 to 5, with 1 being a low risk and 5 being an extreme risk. So at the time I took this screenshot, the risk was moderate. That means there is some risk that if I'm sitting out there in direct sunlight for a while, I might burn. But it's not a severe risk. It's not an immediate risk, I should say. So let me show you. You can then click on different parts of the wheel to see what the risk will be like throughout the day. So if I click, say, right around here where you can see the color gets a little bit into a darker orange, which is also an indicator of severity. That then shows that at 1 p.m. on that day, the risk went from moderate to high. And a high risk, you can burn in just a few minutes depending on your skin. I'll show you exactly how long it might be in just a minute. So I can click anywhere here. It goes from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then if you notice this little slider down here, it says today and tomorrow. And while it doesn't say it, this little middle bar is tonight. So that's 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It's not labeled because you don't get a lot of UV radiation between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. At the height of the summer, of course, we do have sunlight for a couple of hours on either end, but it's coming in at such a steep angle and cutting through so much of the atmosphere that there really isn't much of a risk. You might see a little bit of yellow or a little bit of a moderate risk now, essentially in the longest days of the year, but it's not going to be anything severe. But if I click on tomorrow, for example, when I do that, it switches to what was the next day's forecast back in April when I took these screenshots. And so about the same temperature, 55 degrees. It wasn't pure sunlight. You can see up here it was going to be a little cloudy. And so especially in the afternoon, instead of 10 to 310, it was 10 to 240. So that does change. You can see there's no high risk on the wheel. There's only moderate risk. Changes based on each day's individual weather. So next thing that I would draw your attention to, this is all on the Home tab. And now I'm going to go to the My Skin tab. I click on that. It shows me my own personal skin profile. This is something that I set up. It creates this cute little cartoon character up in the top left for me to represent what I put in about my skin and my complexion. And based on what I entered, it says I could burn in moderate sunlight, so that's 2 out of 5, in 57 minutes. And it says protect yourself if you will be going outside for any longer. There are a couple of things to note on this screen. There's the customize button up here at the top. And then there is the apply sunscreen button down here on the bottom. And I'll show you how both of those work. Oh, and hey, I just realized I'm going to briefly say hello to, I see we have 2 other people who have joined the Zoom call. Welcome. What we're talking about right now is UV Lens. And this is an app which protects you from UV radiation from the sun. It helps you prevent getting a sunburn. This is the first of 4 apps we're talking about, so you really haven't missed much. And thank you very much for coming. So as I was saying, we have the customize and the apply sunscreen button. So if I click on customize, it is going to, this is where I set my skin profile. So it has these basic questions, and I have my gender, eye color, skin color, hair color, and freckles. You can see color is spelled the British way, so this is a British app, which seems strange because you don't think about Great Britain as having very much UV radiation. It's usually rainier over there. But I guess they're pale too, so it counts. I'm sorry. I'm always, my British friend and I are always going back and forth. It's all in good fun. I love them over there. It's a beautiful place to visit. So I've set up, you can see my app here with all of my statistics. My eye color, blue, skin color, I chose fair to beige, hair color, dark brown. I would say all of these are pretty much correct. I don't have any freckles. And there is an add additional information button, which if I click that, it gives me these additional questions such as, does your skin burn in the sun? Does your skin tan? How deeply do you tan? And how sensitive is your face to the sun? And so I hadn't filled any of those out, but if you fill those out, that is going to change the way that the app calculates your risk. And so this is just an example. If I switch my skin from fair to beige to pale, it is going to show me that I'm going to burn faster. You might remember this was 57. It is now down to 41 minutes. So if you have a very fair, very light complexion, the app recognizes that you might burn faster. Contrarily, if you have a darker complexion, you might not burn as quickly. In this case, it says 57 minutes for a dark complexion, which is the same as the fair to beige calculation. And so now if we click on the apply sunscreen button, it lets me put in the details of the sunscreen that I have. And so all of this is on the bottle. So the SPF, the water resistance, those are both on the bottle. And then it just asks you to tell the app what you're doing. So are you walking? Are you sunbathing? Are you swimming? In this case, I was swimming. So there is a drop-down list. So I clicked on swimming. And then you can choose whether to get an reapplication reminder. So if you are planning to be out in the sun all day long, no sunscreen is, or very few sunscreens are going to protect you for 12 or 15 hours. And so this is going to tell you when you should reapply. So I do all of that, I fill all of that out, and then I click the apply button right up here at the top. And it gives me this little shield and says I'm protected for 80 minutes. And it says, good on you for using appropriate sun protection. And so I believe, if I am correct, that is the last thing that I have on UV Lens. So it's a very simple app. It is very one-dimensional, purposefully one-dimensional. It is trying to protect you from the sun as efficiently as possible. This is a great app. It's simple enough that children and adults can use it. And it is something which I consult, on these midsummer, sunny weekends. I'm going outside, I'm heading to the pool. I always look at the app first to see, am I going to need sunscreen? How are the clouds looking today? How is the radiation? So it's great to have this to remind me of that. And so if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to unmute, or if you'd rather, you can always pop your questions in the chat. I am going to monitor that as well throughout this presentation. If you're watching on Facebook, feel free as well to ask a question. I can't guarantee I'll see it right away, but I will see it by the end of the presentation. So I'll take a breath. I say this on every one of my programs, but I do know that I talk a little fast and get a little excited. So I do try to pause and take a breath in case anyone does want to unmute and ask a question. All right, so I will go ahead and I will continue into my next app, which is possibly my personal favorite. It is called MERLIN Bird ID. So, like many people during the pandemic, I became a bit of a bird watcher, and it's a lot of fun. I identified over 60 species of bird within walking distance of my house. Oh, hey, not a problem. I just got the question. Will I send a handout or the links for these apps? Most certainly, yeah. Here, let me make sure I'm going to send out, I'm going to send out an email to all participants. So don't worry, I will make sure that you have the names of these apps. And one thing that's important to know is that these are all free on both Apple and Android devices. So you can find them for almost any mobile device that you have. Thank you for the question. So, so in this case, MERLIN Bird ID, I became a bit of an amateur bird watcher. I saw 60 different types of bird within walking distance of my house. I never knew there were that many. I always thought sparrow, robin, cardinal, grackle, red-winged blackbird. And that was basically like the five birds that were in this area. But there are really so many of them. So let me take you through how this app works. And again, these were taken a little while ago, back in April. And so this is the first page that I see on Merlin Bird ID. And it has 7,500 species and counting in its database. So the best place to go is to click on Start Bird ID. And it takes me through a 5-step identification process. The first step, where did you see the bird? If you have GPS on your phone, most phones do, you can click on current location. You can also select from a map, or if you don't want to select from a map and current location isn't working, you can go and search by your city or zip code. It also has a list of recent locations that you have identified birds in. Then it asks, when did you see the bird? In this case, you can see it was April 12th. That was today when I took these screenshots. And so it doesn't have to be today. If I click on the date, I can choose any day on the calendar. Part 3, what size was the bird? You can see this ranges from sparrow-sized or smaller to between robin and crow, all the way up to goose-sized or larger. So at this point, I can tell you we are actually identifying a specific bird. So in this case, it was a very, very large bird that I saw on the pond at the end of my block, just down the street from my house. So it being very large, it was definitely larger than a goose. Geese are large, this one was larger. So I'm sticking with goose-sized or larger. Then it asks what were the main colors, and it gives up to 3 colors that you can pick from 9 options. So in this case, the bird had white feathers and a long orange beak and orange feet. So I'm just going with white and orange. And so I click to select those. I don't have the screenshot of them being selected individually, but you just click and it will let you select up to 3. Then the next, and thank you in the chat, I appreciate it. And then the next one, this is the 5th and final step. So we have already identified the color, the location, and the size, and now what is it doing? And so it gives me this list of different things that a bird might do. And in this case, as I mentioned, it was on the pond at the end of my block. So I choose swimming or wading. And when I do that, this little identify button, which you can just barely see at the bottom, pops up in green. And I click on identify, and it gives me a list topped by the American white pelican. And so in this case, the American white pelican was indeed the bird that I was looking at. That's something which I've always thought was awesome. I think of pelicans as seabirds. I think of them as birds that you see when you're near the ocean, down in Louisiana, in Florida. I don't think of them as an Illinois bird, but as a matter of fact, their migration path takes them through Illinois for about a month each year. And I'm very thankful that one of the little bodies of water they stop at on their way is at the end of my block. So we usually get around 100 pelicans at a time. It was actually a lot less this year. But you can see it did successfully identify the bird I was looking at the top of the list. It is not the only bird on the list. You can see if I click from detail over to list, it gives me the 3 different birds it thought it could be. The double-crested cormorant and the greater white-fronted goose, however, look very different than the white pelican. And so I knew for sure that it was the pelican and not either of those. And if I can't find my bird, I can adjust my answers. And so after that, and so that is it. It's as simple as that to identify a bird. And that is correct in the chat there. You are correct that if you are using data, if you have a data plan which costs money per in a certain amount of data, yes, it will cost you that. The apps do use data. If you are on a Wi-Fi network, so if you happen to have Wi-Fi at home and you see a bird out your window, the app will use the Wi-Fi network rather than your data plan. But in that way, it works just like any other app that you might have on your phone. All right, and so let me show you one other way that you can identify birds. So there is the big Start Bird ID button. There's also the Photo ID button. And that one is a lot of fun as well. So if I click on Photo ID, it gives me two options: choose photo or take photo. Choose photo is great if I am no longer staring right at the bird. If I say I walked home to get my phone, but if I still have the bird right in front of me, I can choose take photo as well. Choose photo goes to your phone's gallery. Take photo launches your camera app. So in this case, I clicked on choose photo, and then I selected this photo from my gallery. It's upside down. That's okay. You can see in the top right corner of the screen, there is a little rotation button. And so you can click on that. I clicked on that once and then twice, and that got it right side up. And so as you can see, once again, we're looking at pelicans. I just can't get enough of these guys when they're around. I think they're so cool. And so now I've chosen the photo and I click next. And it says zoom until your bird fills the box at the top. And so all I do is I pinch and I expand. Just like you might do to zoom in on text on your phone screen, I just pinch and expand my fingers, and I centered the bird as big as it could be in the box. It's a pretty blurry picture. I can't get too close to them. There's a lot of trees and grass in the way, but this is as good as I can do. So I click next, and then it asks me to confirm the location and the date. Once again, it was in Sugar Grove. And in this case, this photo was actually taken on March 26th. But you don't need the date to be exact if you don't know for sure. But you do want it to be in the ballpark because some migrating birds might be in the area at different times of the year. And so then I click identify. And once again, it successfully brings up the American white pelican. In this case, and actually in the other identification too, in both the identification which takes you through those 5 steps and the photo ID, you can click on this little info button to learn more about the bird. So we are going to do that in here right here. And so I click on the info button, and now it shows me the bird's profile. And so ID info, and it starts off with extremely large and conspicuous, which is a good descriptor for a pelican. It goes on, it gives you all of these ways to identify it by sight. I can listen to sounds that they make. I can also see a map of where pelicans can be found. And this is interesting because you can see during the winter, their non-breeding season, they are way down south on the Gulf Coast. During the summer, they actually go all the way up into Canada, but just during their migration period. In the spring in particular, also in the fall to a lesser extent, they come through the middle of the country, including, thankfully, our Aurora, Illinois area. And so that is Merlin Bird ID. I'm going to actually go to another bird app. That's right. I got really into birds during the pandemic. And so these two actually come from the same creator. So Merlin Bird ID takes you through a visual identification of a bird. BIRDNET does something a little bit different. So when you first open up BIRDNET, it's a little bit more intimidating than either UV Lens or Merlin Bird ID were. In this case, when you open it up, this is the first screen that you see. And it's immediately going to start. This little blue and green and yellow graph at the top is going to be moving from right to left, tracking or recording essentially sounds in your immediate vicinity. And so all you need to do is just let it record and try to get and so this is for bird song. I think I didn't mention that when we got into this. This is birds by sound, in which case we're talking about songs. It can also do some other calls and cries that are not, like kind of a cardinal purdy, 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 cheer, cheer, cheer. It doesn't have to be like that. If it's kind of a clicking sound or just a chirping sound or a squawking sound, this app should be able to identify that as well. And when you get those sounds, you're going to see these little peaks above kind of the white noise. And that is what you're looking for. So once you have some clear peaks, you can click the pause button to stop the recording. That is going to basically freeze the whole graph right there where it is. And then I highlight a certain segment that includes what I'm looking for, what I'm looking to identify. So in this case, then I just click Analyze. And what it told me about that sound, which I'm very sorry, I don't have the sound itself recorded. But as you can see, it identified it as a grackle. So it probably wasn't a very pleasant sound. Not to disparage the common grackle. They're very important birds. They are beautiful in their own way. They can be a little mean and they don't sound very pretty. But so as you can see, it identified it as a common grackle, but it was uncertain. And so if it says that, you can always click on the record button to go back, record some more. And in this case, when I recorded more, it then gives me almost certain. It usually only gives one bird species as an option. It can detect, or it can suggest more than one. I have seen it suggest up to 3 different species of bird that could be making the sound. But if it's a quiet day and you get a clear recording, it will usually give you just one species and say almost certain. And then you can click on this button right here. And that's going to take you to first the Wikipedia article about the bird. And so I get to learn about the common grackle. And so it tells me all this stuff. It's not just Wikipedia. There's also the Macaulay Library and eBird, which are both products of allaboutbirds.org, which is run by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So Cornell Lab, of course, is a laboratory at Cornell University in the Ivy League, and they are some of the world's foremost bird experts. They created both Merlin Bird ID and BIRDNET in order to help amateur bird watchers and birders all over the world identify birds. And then your identifications can also help them refine their app. So it helps them to get more exact identifications and to make the app better at identifying birds. So it's really great. You're actually helping out ornithologists when you use these apps. So they're a lot of fun. So I'm going to take a breath. And if anyone has a question, feel free. You can ask in the chat or unmute. I'm going to briefly stop sharing just for a moment, just to make sure there are no questions on Facebook. Okay, good, there are none. Anyone on Facebook, if you see this, feel free to ask questions. I will get to them, I promise you. But now I will I'm going to stop talking just for a second. Any questions, feel free. Thank you. Once again in the chat, thank you. I appreciate your support. All right, so we have gone through 3 apps now: UV Lens, MERLIN Bird ID, and BIRDNET. And now it's time to go to our final app of the evening that I'm going to share with you, which is kind of like MERLIN Bird ID, but it's not about birds. This one is called PlantNet, and it is about plants. And this one, like the Bird ID apps, it's a lot of fun. This one, I've been using it a lot now that everything is in bloom. So let me show you how it works. So when I open up the PlantNet app, this is the first thing that I see. And so these are plants, and this is actually right here. This is the community tab down in the lower left. You can see it is active because it is green. And these are plants that were recently identified by people in the specified region. And so the specified region in this case is the United States that you can see up at the top. The most recent thing someone identified when I took these pictures back in May, poison ivy. So I hope that they didn't touch it. I hope they kept their distance and they got their pictures from afar. But so that's the community tab. The next tab is the Flora selector tab, the region tab. I can get to it either through that little globe icon on the tab or by clicking on USA or the little arrow next to it. And that is going to give me this favorite floras page. So the default flora is the plants of the United States, but it gives me the choice to add more. So if I click add a flora, it gives me all of these different groups. So if I am traveling all around the world every day of the week in a different country, I can choose world flora, and that has basically their entire database of plants. I can also click on weeds. This one, I guess, is specifically for Europe. Useful plants of tropical Africa. Some of these are very specific. If I scroll down further, you get plants of Western Europe, plants of Canada, and plants of the United States, which is the one that I have selected. But for any ecological region that you might be in, there is a flora that you can select. So now that people are starting to travel again, if you happen to find yourself in another part of the world, you can use PlantNet. So I'm going to stick with the USA for now. And then I click on the next tab, the camera tab, which is also, it's the observation tab. And so it takes me to this page, which says new observation. And like MERLIN Bird ID, when we did that photo identification, it gives me a choice. So it gives me a choice between going to my camera and going to my gallery. And so in this case, what did I do? I think I went to my gallery and I selected this image, which I took outside of my parents' home because it was so captivating. The way the dew stuck to the leaves of this plant, the leaves kind of bowed upwards slightly. I didn't know what it was. I had no idea. I thought the plant just looked really cool. The way those veins run through it, it's kind of shaped like a heart too. I don't know. Sometimes nature just really impresses me, even the little things like this. So I chose this picture from my gallery. And then once I uploaded it to the app, it asked me to choose what kind of organ it was. So it gives me leaf, flower, fruit, bark, habit, if it's like the overall habitat, or other. And in this case, it is a leaf. And so I click on leaf, and when I click, it automatically begins to search. And in this case, it identified it clear as day as the Hosta plantaginia, or the fragrant plantain lily. And down here, it gives basically its certainty of the identification. So it was 93% certain, which I'll tell you for this app is very, very, very high. So I was very confident to click that confirm button right here. Especially, I can look through other pictures that other people have uploaded. And when I looked through them, you can even see them, from this screenshot. That's the same plant. And so I clicked confirm, and it identifies it now as a Hosta plantaginea, or the fragrant plantain lily. It also keeps a GPS marker of where I was when I identified it. And then I can click save at the bottom of the screen. So now let me show you a different observation. So I go back to the exact same screen. And once again, I have a choice between camera and gallery. In this case, I have uploaded this picture of flowers, some really beautiful flowers which were growing in my yard. And I didn't know what they were. I made sure that the camera was focused on them, that they were in sharp definition, as sharp as possible. And in this case, I click on flower rather than on leaf. So I click flower, and once I do that, now you see this time there is not just a single plant listed. It does list more than one plant. However, you can see there is a 68% probability that it is the Scotch broom, and only a 1% probability that it is the striated broom, which is a closely related species. So I felt pretty confident clicking confirm for the Scotch broom. I actually knew for sure that it was the Scotch broom. It had just been purchased, and so I still had like the tag that identified it, which was great because I was able to know for sure that it was the exact species that I was looking at. And so there we go. It is identified as the Scotch broom. The GPS didn't work on that one. I think that was my phone's fault, not the app's fault. My phone sometimes has issues with the GPS. So then let me show you one more observation, because it doesn't always work. But even when it doesn't work, it still works. I know that is confusing, so let me explain. So I took this picture. I made sure, once again, it was in sharp relief. I think it's best to try to get a few full leaves in the shot, or a few full flowers. Make sure that there isn't anything that could be overly confusing in the background, and try to just get the one plant at a time, are my recommendations if you use BIRDNET. So I took this picture, I click on leaf, and in this case, it gives me a 31% probability, much lower, that it is the large gray willow, Salix cinerea, and then a 19% chance that it is the Salix caprea, the goat willow. The trouble is, I know that this plant is not either of those species. And here, I'll get to the question in the chat in just 1 second. I promise I'm not forgetting about you. So in this case, I knew that this was a pussy willow. So that is from the same genus, those two-part binomial names. If we're getting scientific, it's called binomial nomenclature. It's the same genus, Salix, as the two that it suggested at the top, but it is Salix discolor instead of Salix cinerea or Salix caprea. But like I said, even though it didn't get the exact species, it still got basically the closest related plants. And the pussy willow is on this list. I didn't scroll down to show it, but it's either the third or fourth plant on the list. And so sometimes it takes a little bit of work on your part to make sure the identification is correct, but the app is going to get you 95% of the way there. And so I chose Salix Discolor. And once again, you can see the GPS was working again for this one. And I clicked save. Let me address your question in the chat very quickly. How to locate apps if you don't know what's available. That is actually a great question. There is not a comprehensive list because there are tens of thousands of apps out there. There might even be more. A lot of them aren't very good. You can search for something like this. So if you searched plant ID or plant identification, or what plant is this, those sorts of keywords in either the App Store or the Google Play Store, you will get BIRDNET along with many other apps that do the same thing. Some of them are good. I know that my mother, she uses one called Leaf Snap. It does the same thing as BIRDNET. It is also a very good app. It's just from a different creator. There are going to be apps which aren't quite as good. There are going to even be some apps which I won't call them scams, but they're not exactly what you expect. You'll find apps which are free, but have tons of ads and chances for you to pay for upgrades inside of the app. You'll also find some apps where their database of information just isn't large enough to really make them worthwhile. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this program, is because if this is the sort of app that interests you, something which you can take your phone outdoors and enjoy the sunshine, enjoy a walk in your garden or in a forest preserve along a trail. These are apps which can really enhance your enjoyment of nature. And these are ones which I can guarantee you are vetted by me personally and verified. They have my seal of approval, my personal seal of approval. The library is not associated with these apps in any way. This is just me telling you as an avid user that these are great apps. But if you don't have me telling you this is the app to download and you want to locate a particular app, what I recommend, look at the ratings and the reviews in the App Store or the Play Store, because that's where it's going to tell you what other people thought. And if everyone is saying, you know, this is a great app, it identified the plant right away, it gave me all of these options, it was very easy to use, you can feel good about it. If it's saying, oh, it was slow, it was crashing, it couldn't identify the plant, it tried to make me pay for an upgrade, that's when you might know to avoid the app. So that are the prices listed. So if an app costs money right from the start to download, its price is listed on the Play Store or the App Store. If it is free but with a potential upgrade, it will tell you that it is free with the option to pay for additional content on the store. It may or may not tell you the exact price. So that's another very good question. Thank you in the chat. So if it's a pay to download, yes, it will tell you. If it's free, but with like a premium content package, it may or may not tell you the exact price, but it will tell you that that is what it is. So here we go. I will show you just a little bit more of, oh, here's a question. Here, before I continue, do you get lots of spam from using apps? No. So for these apps, I did not have to create like profiles with my username and a password. Some apps you do. Some apps you do have to do that. And so you do want to be careful to give your email to a trustworthy app. But in this case, for all of the apps here, I get 0 spam because none of them required an email address to sign up. I believe MERLIN Bird ID recommends you have an email address and create an account. But since you know that's Cornell University, you could unsubscribe from the emails at any time. So it's all about just finding those apps that you trust and only giving your information to apps that you trust, if that. A lot of good apps don't ask for it. So here we go. I'm going to show you just a couple more things. These last 2 tabs on BIRDNET. This tab is the Browse tab, and this one lets you browse the plants in the database, which is kind of a daunting task. So when I'm in this species subtab of the Browse tab, it just shows them by alphabetical order, which is kind of crazy if you remember there were over 8,000 species of plant in this category, in the USA category. So I could scroll through them all 8,000 in alphabetical order. Or if I click on, for example, the family tab, that's going to reduce it to the families. And so you can kind of look for one which looks like your plant. And there might still be a couple hundred of these, but it's going to be a lot less than the thousands and thousands of species. If I know a name of a plant and I am looking for its appearance, I can click on the search button right up here and I can type one in. And it's find a species. So I can type in something. In this case, I typed in honey locust because I think honey locust trees look cool. And it shows me Gleditsia triacanthos, also known as the honey locust tree. And so then, oh, I didn't click on it. Well, that's okay. So then I can click on it and get all of the information that I need about it. So that's kind of the way to search in reverse if you know the name, but you don't know what it looks like. Finally, the last tab is my personal tab, in which case this is my profile. As you can see, BIRDNET also gives me the option to log in, which would use my email address, but I don't have to. It has all of these pictures saved, even though I did not log in. So in this case, yeah, you can see everything from flowers to bark to leaves, arborvitae to lilies to the pussy willow, river birch, I think is the tree with the bark there, if I am remembering correctly. So it can identify almost anything. It identified all of these plants very well. And so now I believe that is my last BIRDNET. Yep, that is my last BIRDNET picture. So before I get to upcoming events, let me ask you, go back, here we go. Are there any questions at all about BIRDNET? All right, seeing none, I will continue with my wrap up here. So upcoming events in digital services here at the Aurora Public Library District, which we are always very excited to share with you our makerspace technology. We had a reintroduction to the makerspace last month, and this month in just 5 days on Tuesday, we have introduction to 3D printing. 3D printing is my favorite technology in the makerspace. It is probably our most popular among patrons. And so you'll get to learn about it. That one is not by me. That one is by one of our digital services assistants, a very knowledgeable digital services staff member. She has years of experience with 3D printing, and she is going to take you through the whole process about finding or making 3D files and then how to prepare them to print. On July 9th, for any job seekers we might have out there or people who might know a job seeker, we have how to build a resume. Again, That's by one of our fantastic digital services staff members, and she is going to take you through all the resources the library offers in order to build the perfect resume. You might learn a little bit about Microsoft Word templates. You might learn a little bit about BrainFuse Job Now. And so what am I thinking? I almost lost my train of thought there. Sorry, it's been 52 minutes I've had you here. That is going to help anyone who might be looking for a job or looking for a new job really create a fantastic resume. Couple more events. Later this month, we have Creating a Sign for Your Room. This one is especially useful for the kids, although the applications of it apply to everyone. So you can learn how to use a couple of our Makerspace tools to create a professional looking sign that you can hang in front of your room. So that's great if you have a kid who wants to make a sign like to hang on their door. That is a great one. But again, like I said, it's not just kids. We're going to be talking about vinyl, adhesives, vinyl decals, and acrylic, and kind of how to combine the two. Again, that one's not me. That's the fantastic thing, is we are just getting our digital services programming really up and running. And so this is another digital services staff member. He has spent years working with these exact tools. And so he's going to show you how to do it. And then finally, the first one, which is actually me again, is Overdrive and Libby on Thursday, August 5th. And those are back to our library apps. I had a great time this month sharing some of my personal favorite apps with you. That one, I'm going to do a real deep dive into Overdrive and Libby, how to check out books and audiobooks, and how to get the most out of those apps. Okay, and in the chat, that is a good suggestion. Video gaming for senior citizens. That's a great one. And you mentioned Duncan. Yeah, Duncan is another one of our digital services staff members. He is fantastic. He will be teaching some as well. So keep your eyes peeled if you happen to come to, at the very least, the Overdrive and Libby one. I know that I will be kind of previewing Duncan's first program. And so that's a good suggestion. And on the topic of suggestions, if I can ask of you, both the Zoom viewing audience and the Facebook viewing audience, and hey, if you're watching this a month from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now on Facebook or YouTube, you can fill this out too. We have got a survey. And I blew right past it. There we go. There is a survey at form, and it's an office forms survey. And I know you can't click on this, even though I could. So I am going to paste that. I think I can, now it's opening it up. Okay, that's okay. I am going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to paste that link in the chat. And if any of you who have enjoyed this presentation or not enjoyed it so much, I can't speak for you, want to fill that out, I would be very grateful. There is a spot on there for recommendations. So video gaming for senior citizens, we'll definitely remember it if you put it on the form. And remember, you can register for any of the events that I have previewed at aurorapubliclibrary.org or give our phone bank a call at 630-264-4117. And thank you very much. So before I let you go, I am going to paste that link right into the chat so that it is easily clickable. And here we go. There we go. So if you wouldn't mind filling out that form, it's optional. You don't have to feel obligated, but I would really appreciate it because it lets me know how I'm doing on the job here. And that's it. thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope you had fun. As you can probably tell, I did. This was a very fun one for me to do. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, that is the end of the program. Thank you once again, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening.